yeah, this Ibanez Prestige RG1570, it is in E standard tuning, and this LTD M1000 Deluxe, well, it's in E flat standard tuning. Now, before you guys answer, we're actually going to go through several more, not just different pieces of music, but different styles, different kind of subgenres of metal, if you will, and we'll compare these two and see which sounds best for which. Now, these are two different guitars. There are several differences. We'll talk more about that at the end of the video. Actually, there's a little history behind this one right here. We'll talk about that too, so do hang around for that. That's going to be interesting. But let's get into the next subgenre of metal for these two tunings. Call this one traditional heavy metal. Now, before we go forward though, I'm going to make this real easy to vote, okay? So I am going to list out every subgenre here in the description of this video. So all you have to do is just copy that and then paste it in the comments, and then out beside each one, you can put which key you like better or which tuning. Do you like the E standard or E flat? You can just, again, copy paste what's in the description, that little section. I'll put it up top so it's easy to get to. Paste it in the comments and then list your favorite tuning for each one. But yeah, I'm going to deem this one as traditional heavy metal. We're going for that lowest power chord possible. We've got a couple more after that. Then we go into this really cool alternate picking riff. By the way, that riff is the song Overcometh from my latest album. On that note, no pun intended, well, the pun's always intended. Let's get to the next riff. Calling this one dark 80s metal riff. I didn't want to say 80s metal riff because I didn't really want it to be like associated with hair bands, although I love hair bands, you guys know that, but this just has a darker undertone to it. The cool thing about this, and the reason why I put this out there with the two tunings, is because we're playing higher notes. We're playing on the higher strings here. We've got the A, D, and G strings that we're playing on, so that gives it a bit of a contrast from the typical, lowest note possible metal, right? So I thought this was a really good showcase to compare the two tunings. By the way, this riff is from the song called Out There, and it's from my very first album, Apocalyptic Dreams. So of course, by dark 80s metal riff, let me know what you like. E standard or E flat best. Let's go to the next riff. We're gonna call this riff melodic metal. I kind of suck at like naming these subgenres, I think, but if you have a better description for this riff, please let me know. But for now, for the sake of voting E standard versus E flat, we'll just call it melodic metal. And this is something that's played across three strings. We're playing the power chords across three strings. We've got some stretches between the frets for those first two chords, and then we follow that up with two power chords that are really just cool variations. So I came up with this riff about a week ago, and I'm going to put it out there as a lesson because I think this is a really cool riff to learn. I know it's kind of simple, but there are just some cool chord structures in here and the progression. I just love it. So in any case, expect a lesson on that one coming up for my monthly YouTube lessons. But yeah, of course, I'd love to know what you like best. I already know which tuning I like best because I wrote it with one of these guitars here. I'm not going to tell you, but in any case, hey, let me know what you feel suits this riff best for melodic metal. Is it E standard or E flat? Now, this wouldn't be a true E versus E flat comparison unless we did some shred guitar. So I figured I'd just throw up a bunch of notes on you like I just did. And man, you know, there are things that I love about the Ibanez when it comes to playing leads. And of course, there are some things I love about the LTD M1000 Deluxe when it comes to leads. So I'm kind of, there's like a struggle within. Metallica pun not really intended there. That was a cool song though, right? But yeah, there's a little bit of a struggle between these two guitars. And again, I've got some history behind that specific LTD guitar I want to share with you in a second. Let's move on to the next one. But of course, let me know under shred what you liked best, what sounded best to your ears. Now we're into the territory of death metal. We've got a lot of tremolo picking and some wicked notes. Now this is where things get a little interesting for me because a lot of the extreme music like death metal, melodic death metal, black metal, a lot of those bands aren't tuning to E standard. I don't think you hear a lot of that. I know some do, but most of this style of metal is tuned down to like D to C to B or C sharp or whatever, and I like that. I think it sounds cool. Like I'm a huge fan of Arch Enemy, for example. I think they're C sharp, right? I'm a big fan of my good friend Brad Mader's band, Must Not Kill. They tune down to C sharp standard. You don't really hear a lot of bands tuning to E standard for this style though, for the death metal style. So it's really interesting to go from E standard to E flat. And let me know if you experience this, and I know I'm spending a bit of time on this. We've got a couple more riffs to go, but let me know if you experience this, the big difference between just a subtle difference. Like E standard to E flat is not a tremendous difference, but I think sometimes just the shift in frequencies can really just change everything. And that's what I'm experiencing as I'm going through this, as I'm making this video and playing these different riffs. It's like, wow, just that little change changes everything. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that and if this is something you experience as well. Oh, real quick, so that riff is what you heard in the very beginning, in the intro. So when you finish the video, hey, go back and watch the intro again. You'll catch that full song where I just have several different riffs in there. Hey, and you can expect some lessons coming out on those riffs as well. And of course, if you're part of my Guitar Academy, you'll have the downloads for that too. But let's move on to the next riff. Now we're venturing into the thrash metal subgenre, and for this specific riff, the notes and the playing, everything has to be really tight, especially when you're playing this with a full band, like I got to at the last show I played, which was a lot of fun. I'll link to that video. I've got some footage of my last live metal show. I'll link to that in the description here. But in any case, though, this song is called Manufactured Chaos. It's an instrumental tune off my latest album, Overcometh, and it's been used in a lot of different videos, so I'm kind of proud of this riff. It's a really fun song to play. But back to rating this, do you like E standard better? Because that's what it was written in. You guys know that's most of what I play anyway. Or do you prefer the E flat version with this riff? Let me know. But now let's move on to the final riff. So we switched things up a little bit here. This is more of a hard rock style riff, and I wanted to include this with this test here, my E standard versus E flat standard test, if you want to call it that. And I'll tell you why I did this in a second here. But yeah, again, this will be labeled as hard rock riff in the description. So when you copy that, you'll grab those and then paste them in the comments and just tell me which you like best. Did you like E standard best or E flat best? But this is a song called Believe. Very uplifting song if you need like a little boost, a little mental boost. I think it's a great song to listen to. That's why I wrote it. I wrote it specifically for that. That's also off my latest album, Overcometh. So the differences between these two guitars here, and you might say, well, it's not really a fair test because these differences are kind of major. They are, but they're not as far as like tuning goes. So obviously the main difference between the two are probably going to be the pickups. So the LTD M1000 Deluxe has got the actives, the active EMG pickups here. The Ibanez, again, this is my Prestige RG1570. These are passive pickups, and they're actually the stock, the V7 S1 V8 pickups. To be honest though, there's not a tremendous difference between the pickups. I mean, there is, but there's not. Like when I'm listening to the playback and when I'm dumping my music down to the MP3, I've got these guitars at the very same volume. You would think the EMGs would be slightly louder. Now, there is more, I guess, saturation with the active pickup, so yeah, that makes a big difference. Also, the next, you can see the Ibanez here, my left hand. And you probably can't tell because you've got designs on the LTD, but the Ibanez neck is actually slightly wider than the LTD neck. Now, if we turn them this way, let me turn them this way, this is a better comparison. You can see that the Ibanez neck, the Wizard neck, is a bit thinner, okay, in the back here than the LTD. So those are, some might say those are major differences. As far as which one I like best, I used to love this guitar. Actually, this is not mine. I'll tell you a quick story on this in a second, why I have this guitar. But it's actually not mine. But there was a time where I just played nothing but my LTD M1000 Deluxe. And then I started playing my Ibanez more. And it's so weird. And let me know what you guys think, if you guys experience this too. I'm asking for a lot of your experience because we start talking about these things and it's just great conversation for everyone to read. Sometimes you'll have a favorite guitar and then that might change over the years. And then it might change to something else. So I try to be open to that. I try not to be like married to just one thing because I want to give myself the freedom to shift, to change if that's something that's needed to help me and make me better or whatever the case may be. But after playing this guitar, what I'll tell you that I like about this one better, the LTD, is probably probably the frets. The actual frets these are real like extra jumbo frets. Now the other thing I'll say that makes this guitar a little bit more difficult to play, the LTD, is I don't know what strings are on here. They might be a little old. Of course, again, they're a little bit thicker too because it is tuned down. Whereas my Ibanez, I've got the Elixirs, the Super Lights, the 9 through 42s. So those strings, I'm just used to them. You could probably get away with 9s, you know, tuning to E flat standards, but you probably won't 10s. I think these might be 11s. I could be wrong about that. I'm not certain. On that note, again, this is not my guitar here. This is actually a good friend of mine's. Tommy Patrick owns this guitar, and I'm considering buying it from him. You know, we realized that we had the exact same guitars, because remember, I used to own one of these things. I played it for years, and I ended up selling it to get something else. And then lately, I started thinking about that guitar. I'm like, you know, I know my friend Tommy's got the same guitar. Let me see if he's interested in parting ways with it. So we're kind of discussing that now, and I'm just playing this and seeing if, hey, do I want this? Like, why did I get rid of it in the first place? Was there something I really didn't like? And it was just I was favoring the Ibanez at that time more. But again, after playing this, and of course, if I put my strings that I prefer on here and all that, I would love it a lot better, I'm sure. But in any case, I just want to share a little backstory about that. So Tommy, shout out to you. Thanks for letting me use this. But anyway, guys, I'd love to know your thoughts. Remember, you can go in the description and just copy the subgenres of metal that I played here and paste that in the comments, and just, you know, put I like E flat better or E standard. Just list that out by each one. Let me know. Hey, if you have to go back and listen to these tunes again, feel free to do that. But I thought this would be a cool little video, kind of a fun little exercise for us to go through. I had a lot of fun playing these riffs and making this for you, so I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Oh, by the way, if you don't have my free practice guide, Metal Riffs and Licks, grab a copy of that. There's a link in the description of this video for that guide as well. That has literally helped thousands of subscribers of mine. I give it away to all my subscribers, so thank you guys for the support. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Keep it metal and keep playing music.